help the youth from speaking, or will it hurt them? So the person in mind isn't you. The person in mind is the youth you are dealing with. Lesson counseling you're speaking with. Will this harm them? Could this harm? Might this harm them? And if the answer is so, then you see your answer to the self-disclosure is not disclose your personal information. And then the question becomes, when it is safe to disclose, how much of what you want to disclose will be held, and how much won't be held? Again, not to you, but to the person you're speaking with. So, and how to disclose it. You don't want to disclose it in a way that makes you feel like my servant doesn't understand how bad this is. You know, they're watering it down. We've all been through this. You're gonna be fine. When they're not really fine. You know, I've had parts of myself, but you know, it just goes away. When the person is really having things that are worse than the ones you had, and so on. So how to disclose? What words to use? And the question is this helpful to the person speaking? He or she, they are the ones that will determine whether I will sell this or not. If yes, how much of it, and how to become very important. And again, what guides this is the person I'm speaking. As someone says, you know what, I broke up with my girlfriend and I'm very depressed. And then let's say your time you had a girlfriend and you broke it off, or she broke it off, and it wasn't very good for you. What do you say? Will you say something first of all? And how will you say it? I want to hear from you. So I'm assuming it is. Assuming it has. The point of can I disclose? So you've asked listener met, and now you're coming to a point where could actually disclose. How will you disclose that, and how much? Yes. So things like other people have gone through something similar, or what would you say? I know of a man whether in the flesh or outside. Borderline.
But I feel like also telling them like disclose like telling them a story and then saying a friend. Like they won't connect that.
It's not self-disclosure.
Yeah, and they won't connect to it. Like they're like Butcher brought up a very good point last week where he said how will that know that he won't be the friend to talk to someone else.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like it's more fun to talk about yourself.
Yeah, and if you're going to talk about yourself, things like this, I just want to think about it. We have a point to put later on in time and discuss it. But just think of that scenario. Think of that scenario. We'll set it aside so we can begin our focus today on the adolescent social and spiritual development. I want you to think about this scenario where someone comes, they've been distraught, they feel very down, they've been struggling through this. They could be university students, and if you were his or her age, and you may have gone through something similar where you started a relationship with someone that didn't work out, and how you might have felt, then the question is, how would you disclose? I just want you to think of that as a scenario, and maybe if we have time later on today, we might discuss it. If not, then in one of the case studies, I'm sure we'll come across a breakup, because it does happen. Okay, so let me get into the adolescent social and spiritual development. This period of life is both stressful and exciting. Armand Nikolai, who is a psychiatrist at the Harvard Guide to Modern Psychiatry, he said the most confusing, challenging, frustrating, and fascinating phase of human development. So it is stressful. What makes it stressful? The changes that are happening. Anytime we're in transition, it's stressful. I want you to think when you're on a plane, you're in transition, and then the plane goes like this. It's a little bit of a stress. Now, if it goes like this for longer, and then after you started reading or eating or stuff, they put on the seat belt, and then you see the movement of the people is not at ease, and you get worried a little bit. What happens? You're in transition. You're not stable. You're not at your final destination. That's exactly what it is for the adolescent. Your own adolescence. Your own adolescence was different than that of everyone else, even though there were similarities amongst your generation, because adolescent experience depends on many things. So it's stressful because it's in transition, but it's also stressful because there are changes that are happening, there are challenges that you're meeting. You're moving from being a child to now being an adult. You want the responsibility, but at the same time you want to be treated like a child. You know, you're in that phase. And when you are into adolescence, deeper into adolescence, you enter into the phase of wanting everything your way, finding your own voice. You want to know who you are. It's an identity crisis. There's a big task. And guess what? Nowadays, as you will hear me speak about this later on, people are stuck in adolescence. You speak to someone who's in their 30s, but they're acting like they're in their 15. Adolescence has become a prolonged social period. And people's behavior that would have been typically classified as an adolescent behavior, meaning a teenage behavior, has now been seen in older ages. But add to this also that everyone's experience is different, even though there are commonalities amongst the group of adolescents, but everyone's experience is different. Remember your own adolescence, and there are things that would impact how the transition is happening. What do you think impacts adolescent experience? I will name the first one: family. That's the easiest. 2. Friends, absolutely. You're the group of people that you hang out with. What else? The country, yes, the society in general, country of residence. Adolescents who grew up in the midst of a revolution are different. And I say revolution nowadays, maybe a few years ago, prior to the Egyptian revolution, Egyptians would not have understood this except 1952 revolution, which is a very, very far away revolution. But we've seen the youth who have come out of the revolution in Egypt are different than the ones before them. They're different. And if you have an upheaval here in Canada, or you have any sort of revolution, again, what's happening in the country of residence is very important. What else impacts adolescence?
Media.
Sorry?
Media.
Media, of course. We're going to speak about that. The media. Religious beliefs, they affect adolescence. Personality, the personality of the person. So you have people growing up, same church, same type of friends, same groups of friends, almost like identical twins, same parents, and yet their adolescent experience is different because of personality, because of their own or their way of perceiving things or accepting things. Physiological makeup that also can impact adolescence. It is shaped by events in the world, as I mentioned about the revolution. Today, teenagers live in a teenage culture that is radically different from teen cultures of the past. Why? There's one answer. Media. That is absolutely true. The social media has had a tremendous impact on the life of youth and adults, but so much more younger people than the adult population. Definitely. This is a time of physical, sexual, emotional, intellectual, and social change. And younger people are moving from dependency on parents and protective confines and rules towards relative independence and social productivity. And media has actually opened the door for more independence when they're still in grade 5. How? How is a grade 5 now more independent than a 20-year-old 20 years ago or 30 years ago? They exactly have access to knowledge, and they have access to a world of people through a very small little device. And they can represent themselves. They can represent themselves through apps and games and stuff. They really, and not only represent themselves, they're seeing the reaction of other people. So the social context is changing. They're no longer the people you take from home to school to church. They are in a world that is much bigger than their physical confinements. And that definitely has an impact on the way they think, on the way they react, on the worldviews, and so on. You remember worldviews from course number 1? Not too long ago. September. No, October. Worldviews. Worldviews is the most important thing. Coming. Yes, coming to that. Yeah, you're right. It is confusing. That's what adolescence is about. That's why. This is a significant change period. So adjusting to great social pressures, a variety of physical changes, the challenge of making life-determining decisions. When does an adolescent make a life-determining decision? Every day? Life-determining? Yeah, I guess. But no, there is a point where they make a life-determining decision. Yeah, when they're in grade 11 now, even younger than this, because they're thinking about their careers. So where should which school should I go to? And you know what? There are decisions that are very hard to change. They could change, but they're not the easiest to change. And when are they making those decisions? You're asked to sit with a grade 11 or a grade 12 and ask them, do you know what you want to be? And I guarantee you, if they tell you the truth, they'll say, I have no clue. But my mom, but my dad, huh? You know, sometimes parents know exactly what medicine, specialty, their kids should specialize in. You know? My mom says I must be a pediatrician. Why? I see you hanging around kids, you're not the happiest person. But my mom thinks, my dad thinks. But ask them, in grade 11 we're talking about, how old are they in grade 11? 16? 16. And you're asking them to make a life-determining decision about values, beliefs, identity, careers, lifestyles, relationships. Now, for an Egyptian population, for a culture that is not, that's outside the Canadian culture per se, but the Middle Eastern culture, maybe Eastern cultures in general, they say, no, this is your path. This is your path. And a lot of people don't like the system, the Canadian system, because the Canadian system, the parents of an Egyptian, a boy or girl, they want him to be either a doctor, or a pharmacist, or a lawyer. A lawyer just entered, and it wasn't in the books, or a dentist. And they look at the Canadian system and say, what a bad system. They put them all in sciences. Well, because they have no clue. It takes time for a person to mature. But again, this is a different culture, a difference in mentality. One could be positive, the other one could be negative, and vice versa.
I just found like in here it's what we know is like in this category it's like yes it's challenging, but I find it like back in Egypt it's like or in Eastern it's like more challenging than here because I see lots of people like even in their 30s, 40s, it's very easy for them. They're gonna change career.
Yes.
They go into university for 3 years and then all of a sudden they don't like it, they don't feel themselves in it. There's no problem, they're gonna change.
Sure.
Back in Egypt, like we didn't have that luxury. Right? Once you're there, like even the society and the culture around you, that's it. You have to be in it.
And do you remember how grade 12, Sanawiyya Amma, how big of a deal it is in Egypt? Because it is life determining. Even so, very good point. Even so, more so in Egypt or in countries like Egypt. Egypt isn't the only country like that. Than in places here where there's flexibility, there's change, and so on. So when we speak about the adolescence, we say that adolescence has a 3 overlapping periods. The first one is the pre-adolescence, and this starts at the age of 9. So now we're defining a little bit. So it starts at the age of 9, maybe younger now, I'd say 8, 9, maybe 10. I'm more towards the 8 and 9, and continues for at least 2 years or so. Now you have to understand, every one of these categories they are not strict categories. They're open, they're malleable, they overlap. The second category is the middle adolescence, which is between the age of about 11, 12, till about 18. Or I'd say 14 to 18. It's allowing a little bit of leeway. That's called high school years. That's called middle adolescence. And then you have post-adolescence, or late adolescence. That is, or also known as young adulthood. That is late teenage years till about the early 20s. 23, 22, 24, somewhere there. Okay? So, let's talk a little bit on the impact on social development. What is impacting their social development? When I say social development, what are you thinking about? What is social development? Yeah, how they learn to interact and behave and be and act and react to the presence of other people in their lives. I like that definition. Now with physical changes, would they have social and psychological implications? And the answer is absolutely, and you can tell from the way I'm asking the question, it's a leading question. Of course, my question is how? Yes?
Well, their perception of how someone might interpret the changes that are happening physically, and that could cause them to behave in certain ways. They could be shyer, they could be more aggressive, just depending on the person. Is that
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I should share this now or a bit later. I'll wait a little bit maybe to hear from you. Maybe someone will pick on this one. So being shy, what's being shy all about? What's that all about? It starts with self. Self-awareness. Teenagers become more self-aware than adults later on, and definitely more self-aware than kids. Kids can do silly stuff and they don't care, and their parents are embarrassed for them. But teenagers, no one needs to be embarrassed for them. They can do that for themselves because they're very self-aware. Let me ask you, where is the mirror in your home? Bedroom. Yamim. Where else? Washroom. Where else? Hallway, yes. If you have a mirror on your way out to the door, who's most likely the one to look, a final look before stepping outside the house? Any female, correct. That's correct. Moms as well. But definitely, teenagers, and you may even see guys, but guys will do it in a very subtle way. It's like a quick look. Because they're... Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I tend to do the same, but nothing changes. Right? They pass by and they look at the mirror. They did an experiment where they had 50% of boys, and this was presented if you attended screenagers. They had 50% of boys and 50% of girls in that teenage years. They had them, 50% of them, of the girls tried on swimming suits, and 50% of the boys tried on swimming suits. And they were asked, and the other 50% of both gender did not. They just tried on sweaters. And both of them, with whatever they had on, were asked to write a test. And the female that tried on the swimming suit did much worse, significantly worse, than those who didn't. But the difference was not found in boys. What might this tell us? So the researchers said, yeah, there's a bit of a distraction there. They're more self-aware of their exposed skin or body when they are in the swimming suit than boys. But even within themselves, they found that there was a difference. That was a key finding, the difference in the female cohort. Teens feel awkward about themselves physically. They're very self-conscious, and you know what? They are actually dissatisfied with their physical appearance. You might look at a girl and say, "Wow, she's so beautiful," but she actually doesn't think she is. She thinks that she's not beautiful, that her friends are more beautiful than her, and so on and so forth. Fears in locker rooms at school. You know, we live in a free country. And a free country means in lockers, people are free of their clothes. And boys pick on boys over their reproductive organ. The sizes and all that. They do it. And they do it and they throw in words that are very hurtful. And so this happens in schools, whether you've experienced it or not. It happens in schools, happens in anywhere where peers are, together. It might, a comment might be said here or there that will hurt. And it says freely about the teen's physical appearance, or comparing with each other without anyone saying anything. Just comparing. Where do we see this now outside of the locker room? Where is that comparison happening? Social media. How many hearts I've received on the picture I put of myself versus how many hearts she received, and so on. I mean, these things are no little things. They are actually happening, and they are impacting the way teenagers look at themselves, and girls more so than guys. Peer influence and pressures. That's another thing that impacts social development. The insecurities of shifting into middle school or into high school, the new change. The development of close friendships. The idea of hero worship. You know, everyone. So how many of you have had a discussion about Rami Malek? At home? No? None? None of you? How many had a discussion about Rami Malek? Okay. How many discussions do you think there are out there on social media about Rami Malek? Huh? Me Rami Malek. Okay.
Oscar winner.
Oscar winner. Yeah, Oscar winner Egyptian. Yeah. The hero worship, the idea of worshiping someone because of what the social status they have amongst their friends. Having crushes on people of the opposite or people of the same sex. Now, we cannot bury our heads in the sand and say there's no one out there who doesn't have homosexual tendencies. There are some people, teenagers, who have same-sex attraction. We know it's a sinful lifestyle. We know it's a sin that we have to struggle against. But that doesn't change the fact that some people are struggling with this. And some of these people are our own children in the church, and we have to know how to deal with them and how to help them through something like that. All this indicates social adjustments taking place during this period of time. Now, the other thing, dependence versus independence. So we're talking about the impact on social development. We said physical changes and self-perception. Also, peer influences and pressures can also impact the way a teen socially develops. Dependence versus independence. So here, the conflict at home. Some parents they have an open system. Other parents have a closed system. So the rules, what are they allowed to do and not allowed to do? How easily can they become independent of their parents, or how fast that process happens, or the rate of it happening? The development of abstract, self-critical, and reflective thinking. That's also happening during this time, and it leads to initial questioning of parental values. So when the teens, when they question the parents' values, some parents take offense to that. But really what's happening is they're developing socially, and they're wondering, will this be my value? And how are they wondering? By questioning the value. Here's a value, you know what? Marriage is for life. A teenage might say, well, why is it for life? Why am I stuck with someone for the rest of my life? And a parent will say, what? What are you doing? What is this? Who told you this? They're just wondering, will this become my value? And so on. Premarital sex. No sex before marriage. Well, what if a teenage asks their servants, like, why is that? Will we take offense to that, or will we be open to discuss and explain and give reason why? Why this is a value to us? Why is this a Christian value? And when we reason with them, they take it in, they think about it, and then they make a choice, which God has given to all of us to make. Some good choices, and some bad choices. But they're choices. So they're questioning parental values because they're becoming self-critical. You will notice in your teenagers, if you're serving them in church, as they come from the younger grades to the older grades, they become a little bit critical of you as a servant and the way you say things. And even children, they don't make fun of their parents' Egyptian accent, but they become a tween in their grades 6 or 7 and 8, and they make a point of telling you have an accent in the way you're saying things, and so on. They're becoming self-critical and also critical, and they're reflective in their thinking. But that also leads them, if they're reflecting in their thoughts, become reflective in their thoughts, what can this make them prone to? They're thinking a lot. What could this make them prone to? Doubts, huh? Rebelliousness, so they're rebelling against the norm. But when you're thinking too much, what do we call this? Yeah, and overthinking causes what? Anxiety. Anxiety is very prevalent amongst teenagers. Why? Well, because they begin to think about so many different things. And not just think one cycle, 100 cycles into the same matter. So then that's why they also experience anxiety and worry. Peers become increasingly significant as adolescents seek to break away from parental influences, values, and controls. And it becomes normal to say they don't listen to us. Your parents say they don't listen to us, but they listen to their friends. It's the same thing I told them the other week, but now that their friend said it, it's law. It's like a given thing. But then again, it's something to keep on. Part of a clique, not clique. We had a debate over clique or clique. What do you guys think? Is it clique or clique? Clique. Mina?
I said it before, but
Clique?
clique.
It's actually, if you look it up in the dictionary, and I did take the time to do that, it's clique. So, anyways, they're part of a clique, yet very unique. They're part of a group, but they don't think of themselves as just like anybody else. They need to be accepted, and that's being part of a group, but they want to also stand out of the group and be known to be exceptional in something. So, however, teens often like to maintain their unique identity, so they strive for individuality. When we talk about teenage personality, I want to present to you 4 personalities. And I want you to ask yourself, which one of those were you and are you? There's the interactive teens. The interactive teens, almost half of the teens are called interactive teens. And again, you have to understand, we don't just mold someone into one category and that's it, but they're mostly interactives. So half of your teens will be mostly interactive. They're highly personable, focused on relationships, so they're your relational type of person. You know, they like to talk and they like to spend the time in connecting with people. And they're sensitive to others. They live with a relaxed approach to problem solving. No big deal, we can deal with this. The most important thing is we're having a good time together. That's more important. And they tend to be hospitable and minimally influenced by stress. So stress, there, but not a big deal. Those are called the interactive teens. They represent 50% of your teens. Dynamos. Dynamos, they're a quarter of the teen world. They are aggressive, they're focused, they're driven, they're above average in productivity and effective problem solvers. They also can irritate others with just having high energy all the time. And they're very competitive, and they also exert self-assurance. Then you have your stabilizers. They are a fifth of adolescents. They're marked by consistency. Stabilizers, this is the type of teen that you never really have to tell them to clean up their room, kind of. It's always clean. Everything is in place. They're stabilizers. About 1/5 of your adolescents, they are marked by consistency, loyalty. They go to one place to cut their hair. That's the person they go to every time to cut their hair. And it's probably their friend who has a machine. And that's it. They are very thorough. They are quite predictable, but they also can be rigid and lacking in creativity. And then you have your evaluators. This is your smallest group. They like details. They love details, and they insist on accuracy and completeness. So those are your type of teens that when they were younger, you couldn't tell them just finish your homework. No, 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 no. This line was not straight. I have to make it straight. And they're evaluators like that. They tend to be perfectionists who put high demands on themselves and others. Tell me now, which one of these are you? Yes.
I think I'm a mix.
A mix, yeah.
I think I'm both interactive and evaluator.
Interactive and evaluator. Okay, good. Someone else. This is your thought. These are just your thoughts on yourself. No teenager or personality is better than the other. They all have edges. They all have positives and negatives. Yes, Marie?
A dynamo?
You're a dynamo. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yes, of course. Yes, full of energy, productivity, effective problem solver. Absolutely. Can sometimes irritate others with their high energy, competitiveness, and self-assurance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. What else? Someone else. Yes.
I think in high school I was a combination of a dynamo and an evaluator.
Uh-huh. And now more so what?
Probably an interactive.
More interactive, okay? So the expression of your personality you think may have changed, but I assure you that the essence of your personality has not.
Yeah. I might still be an evaluator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. I agree. I agree. An evaluator is someone who evaluates things, and yeah, absolutely. All of these personalities are good. I am free to say you are this or that because they're all good. There's no judgment here. Okay. So what also impacts social development is what type of personality are you? Interpersonal changes. So changes in relationship with parents and peers and others. Guess what? Teenagers don't have control over their world. They don't know what's going on with mom and dad. And guess what? Most of the family problems that happen, most of the marital problems that happen in 2 periods of marriage. Mainly. The first 2 years before anybody shows up. And they get revisited again when? In the teenage, I should say 3 periods. They get revisited again in the teenage because the presence of a new person, really a new person, pokes on mom and dad, and with the stresses of life, they can poke on one another. And then the 3rd period is when the kids move on and you end up with what is known as empty nest. You face the partner you said yes to many years ago, and then you say, oh, that's you. Now we have to face one another. There's no one to buffer us. And so those are the 3 stages, and this is one of them in teenage. It is important to be liked and accepted by other teens, especially the opposite sex. That's an interpersonal challenges. And a teenage wants to know, do girls like me if I'm a boy? And if the girl says, are guys going to approach me? And some of them just want to date or want to be with a guy not because they like the dating idea. It tells them something about their own self-value and their attractiveness compared to other people. So it's really not just about a concept of dating as dating itself, but it has a reflection on themselves. And family stability. But even as they move away from parental control, and they're developing independency, teens need to feel that their environment at home has stability. It's very important. So often teens feel confused, they feel anxious and angry when there's a lack of parental guidance. So you think, or parents might think that my teen, they don't want me to keep telling them or guiding them. I mean, they will definitely push you back, or push the parents back. But the parents who are completely away and they're not involved in their teen's life, actually that adds confusion to the life of teens who are looking for guidance. They may not like it, they may push against it, but they like to hear it. They like to know it's there. And also they're impacted by conflict at home or instability at their school. So tendency, just quickly, they tend to want to be treated as adults. They want to discover and observe things. And that's why we involve them in decisions. We involve them in coming up with things. Even in classes, in their service, we can't just give them something and say, here is the curriculum. We have to involve them in making the curriculum. We have to involve them in presenting some of the topics, we have to involve them in discussions, as we will do shortly. We have to get them, get their hands wet, hands and feet, were very, involved, because they like to discover things. Also, they have the tendency to self and to ego, and especially in the West, there is high emphasis on individualism and not on collectivism. So the person is more important than the group or the family, whereas in the East end of our world, the family tends to be more important than the individual. So in here it says, whatever you like, you do. In the East, it says, no, is this going to be good for your family? Is this going to bring honor to your family? And I'm not talking about Middle East, I'm talking about East end as well of the world. So collectivism and here individualism. They have tendency to want to laugh and to make fun even of themselves. They want to, have tendency towards humor. And they have also the tendency to rebel, criticize, and reform. Why? Tell me why they have that tendency.
Because they're more critical and thinking about more things, so they're evaluating
Exactly.
whether or not they like
They begin to evaluate their world, and they begin to be disappointed in their world. This is the age when mom and dad are not always right. This is where the adult population has done us harm. That was the case in the revolution. The revolution was enough of the generation that has put us down and behind and backward. So they could rebel, and an extreme form of rebelliousness collectively is a revolution in a country and so on. But the criticism is usually accompanied by practical means of reform. If you really poke further in their thoughts and you give them space to think, they actually have some solutions to share, which is really good. So I'm going to give you some gadgets for understanding teens' emotions. Since we're talking about social development and we see those emotions in the development. Gadgets is like in the car, when you look at a certain gadget, you can tell something is going on with the engine, or something is going on with this part of the motor and so on. It's an indicator. So tell me, what do you think the anger gadget is telling you? What's going on with a teenager who is angry? What's this gadget pointing towards?
exploding.
Exploding is not pointing to explosion. It's actually. So maybe I don't know if I was clear. I'm asking, this gadget is telling you what to look for. So if there's a gadget of anger increasing, what do you think is, or this was sorry for you, what do you think is actually happening?
Not feeling like they're in control. Like lost control.
Yes, they've lost control. I want you to think of goals. What's happening to their goal?
Being distorted, or
It's actually being blocked. Because see, it's not just changing and they're okay with it. It's blocked. It's something they want to reach, and they're not able to reach it, so they get angry. Their goal is to go out with their friends. And who's blocking that goal? Parents. So what do teenagers do? They shout, they yell, they stomp their feet, they throw things. So that's your gadget of anger. Will make you think, as a counselor or someone, like you say, like as a servant, more so. There is a goal that is blocked. Okay. Someone wanted to say something. Someone wanted their hand up. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, they get angry when their goal is challenged. So whatever that might be. So that's a very good example.
Yes.
Or even like mentally or emotionally, if they feel like they've disappointed their parent or even a teacher, that could arise anger
Yes.
a lot because
Again, what is their goal? What is their goal in that scenario when they disappointed a parent? What is the goal that has been blocked? Their goal was to always look good in the eyes of. Whether you actually believe this or not, teenagers want to be accepted and in the good books of their parents. But they're struggling to do it their way. How about anxiety? What's that gadget pointing to? Think of goals. Yeah? Yes. Another word for confusion is being uncertain. Like, they get anxious because they don't know whether this goal will be met or not. Will they be a good person when they grow up? Will they be successful or not? And actually their mind is telling them the answer is no, you won't. And most likely you won't. It's actually a negative answer. So here, anxiety, if you see an angry teen, you think, what goal is being blocked? You see an anxious teen, you should ask yourself, what goal is being uncertain? What are they doubting? What is it they want to achieve, but they're not certain they'll achieve it? How about shame or guilt? Failed. Yes, the goal has failed. The goal failed. I want to, because you are all learners and you are old enough to read on your own stuff and evaluate things, and we're not spoon feeding you, I want you to look up Brene Brown. Brene Brown. She's one of the. She's a Christian person herself, although she doesn't really, speak of herself necessarily as a Christian person or not. She's a psychologist who has given a lot of attention to shame. Shame actually impacts our life more than we ever think. And shame is different than guilt. Because guilt motivates you to action. Shame actually does the opposite. It makes you feel bad and hopeless. And no good. It has to do with self-evaluation or self-worth. Look her up. She has a couple of nice books for teenage girls and guys, more so girls, because again, she sees that more so in girls. The goal here has failed. How about sadness? If you find there's sadness. Oh, and shame is one of those things that if you don't, you can fight it by bringing it up. The more you bring it up, the more you actually work on it. But shame tells you don't bring it up. So shame actually works against you. So I sit sometimes with the youth, and from the stories I hear from them, I say, my goodness, they're going through a lot. Like, they're going through a lot of shame. Not just low self-esteem, but low self-image. They don't like who they are. And they can grow up to be adults who do not like who they are. It becomes problematic for them. So shame is one of those gadgets that I want to be very sensitive for you, especially in dealing with teens. And check, when you feel someone is acting up in a strange way, ask if there is a bit of shame there. And you may get a no first, but a yes later. That's part of shame, to hide itself. Sadness. What's happening to the goal? It's sadness. Yeah. So another word for disappear, the goal is lost. And that will bring about sadness. The level of emotions depends. So whether the level of anger or anxiety or shame or sadness, the level, is it high or low, depends on what is being affected. So I'm going to give you a scenario and you tell me. When goals and intentions are being affected. So when goals and intentions are being affected in any of these four, whether the goal intentions are being blocked, uncertain, failed, or lost, versus when values and expectations are being affected, versus when need and sense of worth are being affected. Which of the three do you think will be the lowest? I'll say them again. When goals and intentions are being affected. 2, when values and expectations are being affected. 3, when need and sense of worth are being affected. Which of the three will be the lowest? Lowest movement on the gadget. Intentions and goals, values and expectations, need and sense of worth. What do you think? Values and expectations would be the lowest. Okay? What would be the highest? So, which of the following, if affected, will give you the lowest move on the gadgets? on any of these gadgets. The lowest move, the lowest change. Goals and intentions, values and expectations, need or and sense of worth. Natalie and Renee.
I think values and expectations.
Values and expectations.
Because they're still questioning that.
Okay.
So they're still trying to figure out what their needs and expectations are. But the last one, they want to be accepted.
So their need and sense of worth, you think, will give the highest change?
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyone disagrees to that?
No, I think the goal is higher than the goal, right?
The first one says goals and intentions. The second one says values and expectations. The third one says need and sense of worth.
So I put goals and expectations.
Goals and expectations, goals and intentions. You want to mix them up too?
I'm so
Goals and intentions, values and expectations, need and sense of worth. Yes.
I disagree because values and expectations, I think they're always there, and they're the one farthest away.
So they will produce what?
They produce the less
The
movement.
lowest
The
one.
lowest.
The lowest.
I think that's what we agreed upon.
Yeah,
That's what I
that's
said.
what you're saying.
So I think that's that one. I mean, to me, it's pretty clear that that's probably the lowest. Like it'll only.
Tell me why you think that values and expectations will produce a lower change than need and sense of worth. Yes, me.
Number one, they still are, in a sense, they're experimenting their values that they are still forming. They still don't have anything set in stone yet. They're shaping that in those years. And so that's why, even if those do not turn out as planned or as they might have hoped, it's still not going to be the end of the world because those are changing all the time. And that's how they would be able to shape them later on in life. However, in terms of self-worth, that changes all the time, and that produces the biggest change, because that is how they prove to themselves that they are worth something, and that this is how they measure their essence compared to everybody else around, and that's the point that social media is working on.
Okay. Yes.
I think when we lost the sense of worth, there is no need to live anymore. So we lose the goal to live, and then this is it.
Okay. So tell me, yeah. Help me understand that. So the highest change you believe will come if the need and sense of worth of a teen is being blocked or uncertain or failing or lost, correct? I agree with you. Now help me understand, why do you think values and expectations are going to produce a lower impact than goals and intentions? I would argue, just throwing it out there, I would argue that goals and intentions will produce the lowest change. But values and expectations are going to produce a moderate change. Yes. What do you think?
From my perspective, adolescents, they're thinking of now. So these two things, they are the past and the future, so they're been brought with, and their future expectations. So what will impact them is what's happening in this small area of time now. And these two things are not in that area of time for them now.
So based on the now and then, right now, you think that their goal and intentions will produce a bit of a higher impact, okay?
One can also argue that values are more abstract and more, they would be more abstract than goals. Goals can be more universal and can be tailored towards whatever it is that they are, whatever situation they're in the current time. So goals can be either school-oriented or socially oriented or religiously oriented. However, values are more abstract, and so this is the period of life where they might not have that connection with those abstract values yet, and that's why that might not produce as big of a change as the goals that can be tailored to whatever situation they're in.
I like the argument. Yes.
I think goals, if you don't achieve them, you answer yourself to yourself. But with expectations, there's somebody always going to be holding you up to those expectations. So there's somebody pointing a finger at you and reminding you of.
So you think that the values and expectation will produce the moderate, and the goals and intentions will produce a mild?
Simply because there's somebody behind it that you don't want to, disappoint.
Okay, good discussion. Good discussion. I want to point something out to you, and that comes out in this discussion quite powerfully. How are you defining these terms?
I was going to say, like, goals, it depends on how you would.
The question is, from whose perspective are you defining these goals? If you're saying that these values and expectations are defined from an adult perspective, then I would argue that Mina's position, and I'll polarize it to Mina now, that Mina's position is correct. But the values and expectations, what we don't consider to be values, so that teenager who's fighting with a big, huge reaction because he or she want to go out with their friends, it's not just because the outing is being blocked. Why do they actually want to go out with their friends? Yeah, they don't want to be the odd one not going. Well, is that just a goal, or now is it becoming an expectation from their friends, an expectation from themselves, and a value? So what you and I call abstract value and expectation is correct, but not from their perspective.
But that can be sort of self-worth, because now they would feel like they are less than those people who can actually go out.
If it goes to that level, then the reaction will even be bigger. That's what I'm arguing. It will be even bigger. But if they say this outing is just a goal, it's something I'd like to do, but it doesn't hit the expectations. I'm expected. My friends, they don't have parents who do that. They let them do this and that. It's an expectation. Expectation is a little bit higher than just an intention to do something. I intend to do this, but it's no big deal. I have a goal to do that, but it's no big deal. When it goes to the value level and the expectation level, it's more pressure. And that's why the reaction will be slightly, or be a moderate reaction. We can talk about this in the break. There's hawashi, and there's some drinks over there. Let's take a 10-minute break, and we can continue this one-on-one if you'd like to discuss it. We'll come back, we talk about something that is very important, extremely important, spiritual development. And we'll close with that.